So there's a new thing in this country of heckling the king. So we've got some footage here. I won't say he's minding his own business because he's on an official visit. He goes to Colchester Zoo. This happens. Right, I couldn't make out. He's got a faulty megaphone, that guy. Would you say, how can you be head of state without a red scarf? I thought is what I heard. Anyone got a word on that?
Why are you wasting our money?
Why are you wasting our money?
Yeah, not my king was another one.
What do you think, Carole?
I just think it's rude. You know what I mean? I mean, the guy. I don't know how many there were, but it just sounded like one bloke with a bad megaphone. I don't think it would have bothered Camilla one iota. I think she's kind of.
She looked a bit bothered. She looked like she was going up to have. If we have a look at her there when she's walking along, she looks a bit.
Do you remember that
miserable?
Who was always outside Parliament during Brexit, the one with the megaphone?
Yeah, Brian Hall.
We stopped listening to what he was saying in there because he was just so annoying. Every time people were trying to broadcast or do something today, he was just screaming his head off. And I just think, the monarchy exists. Get over it. You might not agree with it, but you don't have to do that. It's just beyond rude. He hasn't done anything to warrant or deserve that.
What do you think, Simon?
Are we sure it didn't happen with the Queen? I'd imagine it happened a lot less.
I don't think it ever happened with the Queen. I can't even remember any slogans. What would you shout?
I don't know.
Down with the Queen.
And why aren't
I'm sure
why
someone
aren't they
may have
shifting
shouted
them?
that at some point.
Why doesn't somebody just lift them?
Oh, here we go.
Well, why
North
not?
Korea.
No.
What do you mean North Korea? No, just move them out of the way.
I agree with Carole. It's a little bit rude.
Yeah.
But...
All right, let's talk about something stirring up headlines and teacups alike. Protesters heckling King Charles. On a fiery episode of Jeremy Vine on 5, this topic exploded into debate. Jeremy himself kicked things off, saying, "There's a new thing in this country of heckling the king." And he didn't stop there. He also took a swipe at Queen Camilla, questioning why she didn't wear the traditional red poppy scarf at a recent engagement, saying she looked, in his words, miserable. Now, Carole Malone was having none of that. She slammed the hecklers as just plain rude. She quoted some of their chants like, "You're not our king." For her, that kind of behaviour has no place, not when you're dealing with the monarchy. But the panel didn't all agree. Another panellist highlighted what's really fueling these protests: money. Hecklers weren't just questioning Charles's right to the throne. They were shouting, "Why are you taking our money?" So is this about respect for tradition or frustration at the royal price tag? The debate didn't stop in the studio either. Across the world in Australia, King Charles faced heckling from Indigenous Senator Lydia Thorpe, who accused him of historic wrongs and demanded land back. The fallout was huge. Thorpe was censured, but she stood her ground, calling out the British Crown's dark history. So here's where I land. Is heckling the king a bold act of free speech or just bad manners? Does it cross a line or is it democracy in action? People are divided, and the monarchy is right at the centre of it all. One thing's for sure, this debate is far from over. Now let's step outside the studio and onto the streets, and of course, into the whirlwind of social media. When footage of the heckling hit the airwaves, reactions poured in faster than you can say, "God save the king." On Twitter, hashtags like #NotMyKing and #Abolish the Monarchy started trending overnight. Many users praised the protesters, calling them brave for challenging an institution they see as outdated and out of touch. One tweet read, "Finally, someone saying what we're all thinking. Why should we pay for a monarchy that does nothing for us?" Others, though fewer, insisted, "It's still tradition. But honestly, does anyone really care about Charles and Camilla?" In the comments section of major news outlets, skepticism about the monarchy's relevance was front and centre. Some argued it's a right in a free society to question authority and demand accountability, while others simply shrugged, seeing the heckling as a reflection of how little the monarchy matters to their daily lives. And it wasn't just Britain watching. International media picked up the story, often questioning why the monarchy still exists at all. American outlets framed it as a classic freedom of speech showdown, with many commentators baffled by the monarchy's continued presence. In France, headlines drew comparisons to their own history of rejecting royalty, questioning why Britain still clings to the past. And in Australia, where Republican sentiment runs high, the incident reignited debates about whether the monarchy has any place down under. Interviews with people on the street revealed a full spectrum of scepticism and indifference. One pensioner told the BBC, "I may not agree with Heckling, but I do agree with asking questions about where our money goes, especially for them." A university student in Manchester said, "It's about time the monarchy faced some real scrutiny. Most of us just don't see the point anymore." So, whether it's a sign of healthy democracy or just proof of the monarchy's growing irrelevance, one thing's clear. The King's hecklers have sparked a conversation that's echoing far beyond the palace gates. As we dive deeper into the controversy, it's important to recognise that heckling royalty is nothing new, and for many, it's a way to challenge an institution they see as increasingly irrelevant. The British monarchy has faced public dissent for centuries, often seen as a symbol of entrenched privilege and power. Let's take a brief trip through history to see how protests against the crown have persisted and how the monarchy has struggled to maintain its relevance. In the 17th century, King Charles I faced intense opposition, leading to the English Civil War and ultimately his execution, a stark reminder of how fragile royal authority can be. This period marked one of the most dramatic rejections of royal rule as the public demanded change. By the 19th century, Queen Victoria's reign was also met with public discontent, especially as the monarchy was increasingly viewed as out of touch during the Industrial Revolution. Workers' protests and calls for reform were often directed at the crown, which many saw as a barrier to progress. The 20th century brought new challenges, as the monarchy's relevance was questioned time and again. King Edward VIII's abdication in 1936 over his marriage to Wallis Simpson exposed deep cracks in the institution, fueling public scepticism. Even during World War II, when the royal family tried to present themselves as part of the nation, many questioned whether their presence was truly necessary. In more recent times, Queen Elizabeth II's reign was not immune to criticism, especially during the 1990s, as the monarchy's relevance was increasingly debated. The death of Princess Diana in 1997 led to widespread anger at the monarchy's response, highlighting just how disconnected the institution had become from the public. Comparing past and present, today's protests are louder and more visible, thanks to technology. Social media platforms now give critics a global stage, making it easier than ever for opposition to the monarchy to be heard. The monarchy's attempts to appear more transparent and connected are often seen as superficial, failing to address deeper questions about their place in modern society. Palace statements are now carefully managed, but many view them as out of touch with the realities faced by ordinary people. So, while the methods and platforms of protest have changed, the core criticism remains. The monarchy is seen by many as an outdated institution. The monarchy continues to cling to tradition, struggling to justify its existence in a society that increasingly questions its relevance. As the latest hecklers have shown, the challenge to the crown is far from over. And for many, it's a necessary confrontation with an institution whose time may have passed. But what happens after the shouts fade and the headlines move on? The aftermath of a public protest against the monarchy can ripple far beyond the initial moment. For the hecklers themselves, consequences may range from simple removal by security to legal action, as laws on public order and royal protection are still firmly in place. In some cases, protesters have faced arrest, fines, or even brief prison sentences, sparking debates about freedom of expression versus public decency. For the monarchy, these incidents highlight just how out of touch the institution has become. Negative press or widespread social media discussion often forces the royal household to scramble for relevance. Statements may be issued, and sometimes minor adjustments in royal protocol or attempts at public engagement follow, but these gestures often feel disconnected from the realities facing most people. The wider public, too, is left to reflect. Some view the protests as necessary acts of democratic expression, while others see them as disruptions of tradition. But increasingly, many question whether the monarchy has any real place in modern society at all. Polls and opinion pieces frequently emerge, revealing a growing sentiment that the crown is increasingly irrelevant. In rare cases, protests can even inspire broader movements or renewed calls for constitutional reform. Ultimately, each act of dissent, no matter how small, adds a new layer to the ongoing conversation about whether the monarchy should exist at all in modern Britain. The echoes of protest linger, challenging both the institution and the nation to confront what respect, tradition and progress truly mean, and whether the monarchy has any role in that future. As the dust settles and analysis begins, public reaction unfolds in complex and sometimes unpredictable ways. Social media lights up with hashtags and heated threads, amplifying both support for the hecklers and criticism of the monarchy's continued presence. In pubs, living rooms and online forums across Britain, the debate continues. Was this a necessary challenge to an outdated institution, or simply poor taste? Opinion polls show a nation divided, with younger generations often voicing strong criticism of the monarchy and questioning its relevance in modern society, while older Britons tend to defend tradition, even as more people question what the monarchy actually represents today. Meanwhile, commentators and historians weigh in, drawing parallels with past moments of royal controversy, and openly discussing whether the monarchy, including King Charles and Camilla, has any real place in today's Britain. For some, these incidents are a catalyst, sparking renewed interest in civic engagement and fueling calls for a serious conversation about abolishing the monarchy altogether. For others, they serve as a reminder of the values they wish to preserve, though many now see those values as increasingly out of step with the realities of modern Britain. Politicians and campaigners take note, gauging the public mood and considering the potential for real policy change or even constitutional reform. Looking ahead, the legacy of such protests is uncertain, but the sense that the monarchy is losing its relevance continues to grow. Will these protests fade into history as fleeting moments, or will they help bring about a new chapter, one where the monarchy is finally left behind? One thing is clear. The conversation about the monarchy's place in society is far from over. Each protest, each reaction, adds momentum to the ongoing story, a story increasingly shaped by public skepticism and the growing belief that the monarchy no longer fits in today's Britain.